So I'm going to be talking a bit more about applying these RAISE recommendations in practice, particularly what it means for authors or the evidence synthesists. But before I do, I just want to introduce the new Joint AI Methods Group. So this is a new methods group that launched in February earlier this year between Cochrane, Campbell, JBI, and the Collaboration for Environmental Evidence. The conveners of this group are all authors on RAISE, and the aim of the group is to guide and advise how AI will be implemented across the 4 organizations. And there will be differences to how AI is implemented. Each organization has differences in capacity, in resource, in structure, infrastructure. But as this is a global challenge, we felt it was important to collaborate and to align our approaches as much as possible. And so here you can see on the right-hand side the list of conveners and associate conveners who are involved in the group. And we have, as has been mentioned, quite a few on the call today. So some of the areas we're working on include defining best practice, particularly through our involvement in the RAISE project, the RAISE initiative. We also, as we are kind of that bridge from the best practice to implementation, we are focusing on capacity strengthening and AI literacy with things like position statements and frameworks. And these are ones that are of particular relevance to authors or editors so that the expectations about AI use can be clear. In addition to this, we've also started working with some of the AI tool developers. I think what we've seen is that there are some areas that AI tool developers could address to better help facilitate the use of their tools in a responsible and reliable way. So the first is ensuring that we have more public information on the systems and really clear terms and conditions. The second is ensuring that evaluations are publicly available and transparently reported. And the third is around making sure that strengths, limitations, potential biases, and generalizability, that information is clear and public. And the reason that this is so important is because this is the information that authors and editors really need to be able to make informed decisions about whether or not they should use a particular tool. And this will become increasingly clear over my next few slides. I'm going to highlight how practical steps can be taken by authors when they want to use AI in their evidence synthesis. So one of the most important messages for everyone to take home today is that AI and automation in evidence synthesis should be used with human oversight. AI should be a companion should be a companion and not a replacement to humans. And as James mentioned, evidence synthesists are ultimately accountable and responsible for their work. They've always been, this has always been the case for things like defining the review question or deciding what methods to use. And now it includes the decision about whether to use AI and how it should be used. And so the first step is really to make sure that it adheres to legal and ethical standards. And if it doesn't, then it's a no-go. You shouldn't use the AI. Paper 3 in that RAISE collection will help you navigate some of these areas. So some of the key things to think about are plagiarism and provenance. So how can you ensure that you don't represent the work of others? So that might be their words or their data or their ideas as your own without appropriate acknowledgement. Second, there's areas of copyright and intellectual property. And there's two parts to this we need to be wary about. The first is ensuring you don't breach copyright or license agreements by uploading content into an AI system when you shouldn't. But the second is also protecting your own IP. So if you use an AI system for your own work, you want to make sure that you don't unintentionally assign rights to your work to the system. Third are areas around jurisdiction and licensing. So making sure that you have, the access and the license to use an AI system. So for example, some tools may have limited rollout or may only be available in specific countries. And then we come on to the kind of terms and conditions of use, which, as James mentioned, can be tricky to navigate. Some of the tips here, again, these are all mentioned in the third paper of the RAISE series, are to pay particular attention to clauses around data ownership or data handling, which may include references to whether the tool trains on your data or retains it. We strongly recommend that you don't use systems that gain the rights to your content, including the rights to use or distribute or repurpose or adapt or anything like that. And that might be within the system and to train the system. What you want to do is look for strong privacy controls and clear terms and conditions around privacy. Ideally, we want systems where you could disable data collection for training, or that have the ability to turn off or delete the history within the system. Some organizations or institutions may have access to private or enterprise versions of AI systems, and these generally offer greater privacy and security features than your more kind of free and public and open AI systems. So, for example, the Pro version of Claude guarantees the input won't be used for LLM training, whereas the free version does. And then finally, some of the ethical considerations, which might involve breaching informed consent or adhering to data protection laws. So yeah, again, RAISE 3 has tips and guidance on how to start navigating these. Next is that the evidence synthesis, as evidence synthesis, we can and we should use AI as long as we can demonstrate that it won't compromise on the methodological rigor or integrity of our synthesis. You need to be really critical of the evaluations of an AI system so that you can understand its limitations and whether it can be applied to the context of your review. And what's important here is having really clear justification and being able to demonstrate that the tools are methodologically sound, that they don't undermine the trustworthiness or reliability of your syntheses or your conclusions. And third, that it's appropriate to use a specific AI tool for the context of your evidence synthesis. And as we've seen, the second and third papers in the RAISE collection provide more guidance on this, including kind of best practice for conducting evaluations and building that cumulative evidence base. There's a table on an overview of the current kind of state of the art of AI tools across evidence synthesis, as well as guidance on how to select and use AI tools that's more focused for authors. And finally, any AI that makes or suggests judgments should be fully and transparently reported in the evidence synthesis manuscript or report. And so what I mean by judgments is things like, is this study eligible for my review? Any appraisals, so that might be risk of bias assessments, the extraction of data about a study or its results, the synthesis of data, or even the drafting of text for different sections in your review, or summaries like abstracts and plain language summaries. And here we have a snapshot of the Cochrane editorial policy on AI generated content. And Cochrane adheres to the PRISMA reporting standards, which include items on reporting automation tools that have been used at different stages of your evidence synthesis. And in general, what authors should be reporting on is the name, the version, and the dates that the AI tool was used. You also need to talk about the purpose for using AI and which parts of the synthesis were impacted. Best practice here involves things like citing or referencing user guidance, or reporting how it was used in the review along with any modifications that were applied. And then there are these two vital elements to justifying the use of an AI tool. First, that the tool does what it says it does, and that it does it to a good enough standard, that it's methodologically sound, which can be justified by citing and referencing the evaluations. And the second is to showcase that it's appropriate to use the AI tool in the context of your specific synthesis. Some of the ways of doing this include making the inputs or the kind of prompt development and outputs publicly available. And this justification, this two-stage justification of it does what it says it does and that I can use it in my own synthesis, these are the basis for ensuring human oversight on AI use within your evidence synthesis. And then finally, in terms of reporting, if you have any financial or non-financial interests in the tool, these should be declared along with any funding sources. And so this is just a summary of the 4 points I just mentioned. Our new joint AI methods group is also working on a position statement to clarify these points for authors and to provide more guidance on how to report AI usefully and transparently. So watch this space for more details soon. And we're only a few months in as a methods group, and we're very much listening to community needs. What are the areas that we need that we should be prioritizing so that we can better mainstream AI through the 4 organizations? So some of the things that are on our agenda include organizational approaches to assessing AI tools and systems. Frameworks to understand whether an AI tool can be used in a specific evidence synthesis. We've obviously mentioned how important this is, and kind of breaking down those steps for authors will be is a priority area. Third includes things like defining classifications for AI use in AI evidence synthesis, and defining which are acceptable to use in what situations. We also want to work on defining acceptable accuracy standards for AI systems, as well as other kind of training and resources that will support their use. And so one of the areas that has started moving is around the acceptable accuracy standards. So just before I finish, I just want to plug this survey. It just launched yesterday. So what we currently don't have is consensus on how kind of correct evidence synthesis should be. And that's with current best practice, so human only. So we've already heard from Anna there, right, that the gold standard of humans isn't always 100%. Humans may be affected by the level of expertise they have in synthesis methods or in the domain itself, or it could be just around fatigue or general wellness. So having a kind of consensus around the accuracy we should be aiming for, as best practice is important, and then also understanding how that might change if we add AI. And we also don't have consensus around what an acceptable impact of errors might be. So, and whether that would change if the different types of evidence synthesis. And so this survey, which has been developed as part of the Wellcome-funded Destiny project, aims to help better understand this. And it is a first step in collating expectations, and those expectations will inform future work. So we think it might raise more questions than it answers. And therefore, we really do encourage everyone that is listening today or that listens to the recording to please complete this survey and be part of the discussion. And so to summarize, we need AI. Efforts are underway to support the wider adoption of AI, and that's to be more sustainable. But AI also needs us. It needs the evidence synthesis community. There's a danger that the misuse of AI could increase bias and reduce reliability in evidence synthesis. And therefore, every individual and organization from across that ecosystem needs to think about what hats they wear, what roles they meet, and how they can contribute to responsible AI use. AI is here to stay, and so the question isn't whether we should use it, but how. And we all need to ensure that as the field evolves, we don't compromise on those core principles of evidence synthesis, on rigor, transparency, and reproducibility.